Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news and, well, two blokes chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
We have got a wonderful relationship on this radio station with the Geelong and District Footy League, and we are going to focus on the clubs during their pre-season. We've spoken to Adam Donoghue from Inverleigh. We've spoken to... what's his face from Brendan Forsman from Winchelsea.
Good morning, Brendan.
And now we're going to speak to Nick Smith from the Werribee Centrals Football Club. Nick, good morning.
I really like what's his face.
It was just that moment, Nick, where it lost me. Brendan and I get along pretty well, but I just
not anymore.
Lost him for a minute. I might have lost him for life.
Yeah, because he said to me, "I better ring what's his face, get him on the line." So don't think you're over the line.
No, it's good to have you aboard. We had a couple of really interesting chats with you in the past, and I'm sure this will be another one. Pre-season, another odd pre-season. Last year you went through all the effort and nothing happened. What's the mood amongst the playing group this year, particularly after what's happened with another lockdown? It must be tough.
Wants to play. I don't know what the other guys said in answer to that similar question, but my guys are a bit over training. It feels like you've just done, an 18-month pre-season. So, and we even actually played some scratch matches before Christmas. That's how keen guys were just to start playing some footy, because I think it just feels like we've been training for a long time with no games. And I don't know how the other clubs went, but we literally had, we played 2 or 3 practice matches before lockdown happened last time as well. So, yeah, guys just ready to get into it. And it's interesting, I don't think a lot of people realise you don't get to talk to the players a lot when a lockdown happens because you don't get to see them. So, again, lockdown happened last night and I haven't had a chance to touch base with many other than we've already, called off Tuesday training, and we actually had a gym session booked in this morning with one of the local fitness crews, and so had to cancel those things. But we keep trying to focus on the positive and say, see you Thursday. That's what we're hoping.
Because I guess one of the things too, Nick, is that, there are guys there who've been played at the club for 4 or 5 years. They're mates. They know each other. There would have been a couple of new recruits who would be, sort of feeling a bit out of it because they would have cut ties with their old club if they had played somewhere else, and then got themselves all very excited about heading to Werribee and find themselves still kind of on the outer because they haven't had the chance to cross the line with their mates yet.
Yeah, it's a really good point. It's actually something that me as a coach and us as a leadership team and a coaching staff were very intentional about, which is how to connect those guys, both obviously when the lockdown was happening. I was putting out a lot of regular communication and trying to, as best as can connect them. But now that we've got back to training, I'm concentrating we call it crossing the room, which is that, the established players and leaders, you need to go across the room to some of the new guys and make sure that they're feeling connected. Because the other thing, and I don't know if other coaches have reflected on this much, it's significant for us, is you've also got 2 years' worth of graduating under 19. And that's important too, because our club has really been built on that. Like most of our senior team this year will be under 19 graduates from 3 or 4 years ago. So we understand the importance of that too, that you don't lose them in those 2 years, and that they feel connected to the club too. But it's created for us a massive, log jam of players.
Yeah.
We have literally 50 players at every session, and they're not the same 50. So across our Colts, seniors and reserves, we have about 65 to 70 blokes. So, which is a good problem to have, but again, I don't know if other clubs are experiencing that because you've got 2 years of players all sort of dying to play.
And one of the other things that we picked up with some of the other coaches was the fact that there'd be 27 and 28, 29-year-old fellas in the team who, that whole, will I go around one more time? Will I not go around one more time? And in the meantime, they've started a relationship with a partner, and the partner and them have bought their house out, nice Wyndham Vale property out there, and they've, she's got used to him being at home on a Saturday afternoon mowing the lawns or washing the car, and suddenly got to get back into that sequence. So I suspect there'd be a few who are in that boat too, who are going to struggle to get back into the routine.
It was interesting. We thought that, because, it was funny. As coaches, we were talking a lot because it's funny. A lot of the players just disconnected, especially during the depths of lockdown last year. And when we reconnected, it's funny that wasn't their position. In fact, most of them were just playing for that ability out again and do something. I think footballers can tend to be quite unique, and a lot of them don't do much else. So footy is really everything. It's not just footy. It's their physical outlet. But also the footy club is like their pub. It's where they go to hang out. It's where their mates are. And the standard line, I won't say exactly how they say it, but the standard line by most guys are they just missed people to spin crap with.
Yeah.
Like that's what they see the footy club as. That's just where you go, you hang out. It's your friendship group. And to be honest, about older players, you do realise that as an older player, you don't have an excuse to get out of looking after the kids or out of the house when you don't have footy. A lot of them explained to me that I've been their excuse for everything. Smitty told us we have to get there early. Smitty says we have to hang around for a drink. I didn't realise, mate, that most wives don't like this.
That's right. When you walk into the room at the luncheons, they look at you funny.
Nick,
I did not realise that at all. Anyway,
Nick, it is a long, long time since the preliminary final of 2019, but you left that day, although losers on the day, but definitely filled with respect right across the competition. And since that day, you've probably had an increasingly large target on your back as the team to watch. The young faces that you had in that group, all the camaraderie that the opposition players that had played against you felt. There's recruits coming up the road. Are you feeling a sort of a different sense going into hopefully a solid football year this year than you did in 2019 with that extra pressure on you?
We actually took a bit of a motto into that finals campaign that pressure is a privilege. I remember someone, can't remember who it was, saying that, remember, not everyone is under pressure, because some people don't think that they're any good. So I said the fact that, that there is some pressure on us because we've now got, I guess we've got standards now and expectations around us, where when I came to the club, I think we're intense. I think they lost the last round of 2017, I think by 180 points to Werribee, and then you think our last game was losing to them in a prelim. So we're pretty proud of the way that we've developed and improved. And then we felt going into 2020 that we'd recruited another 3 or 4 really good experienced players that were going to make us better, and then we feel we've done that again coming into this pre-season. So I guess we're just happy that people are talking about us and that we're not irrelevant. That was something that personally I couldn't stand as someone who was part of that golden era, if you like, as a player with Centrals. We really become irrelevant. People didn't care what we did, didn't know what we were, who we were. So I think in 3 years to be now spoken about a little bit differently, and I think most teams would be worried about us and probably don't really want to play us. I think that's it's a mark of respect for us, the work that we've put in over the 3 years and the improvement we've got from our younger players and the depth and the ability that we've recruited to the club as well, which I don't know if you guys realise, when I first got there, no one would come.
Yeah.
I couldn't get anyone to come to Centrals because of the reputation and, mate, you guys always lose and it's got a poor culture. So even the fact we've been able to recruit, it's kind of like a mark that, okay, we've done something. We've come to a bit of a destination club in the area.
And I think regular listeners would pick up on the fact that Rob knows a bit more about the GDFL than I do. But my sense of the Centrals, 2019 was really the first time I had studied a great deal of GDFL footy as part of this program, and it seemed to me that there was almost an element of surprise about what you guys were doing, particularly when you got on that run towards the second half of the season. And that bit, I think, would have dissipated now. There will be no surprise. Does that change the way you approach the game?
That's a great observation, because I think you can slip under the guard of teams. Like if I think back to that game where we smashed Thompson, who at the time were undefeated, I think there was probably a lot where teams didn't really know what we were doing, and often we can get away with things because we're literally outside of Geelong. Look, for me, I just think that opposition teams will probably prepare for us a little bit differently. They probably know a little bit more about how we want to go about our footy. But for me, my emphasis as a coach and ours as a club is just always on doing what we do the best we can. I think I picked that up from, I think it was Alistair Clarkson who said that sort of in the, again, not that I think I'm him, I'm just saying I grabbed that quote, that he just said that we just really concentrate on what we're doing, and that's what we're trying to do as well. And I guess in the end you can't change how other teams prepare for you and what they think of you, but we're certainly glad that we're not irrelevant, and we're certainly glad that people know that when they play us, they're in for a hard game, and we think we play a good brand of footy, and a brand of footy that can be successful and hopefully get us the ultimate prize in the GDFL.
Nick, your club is a bit of a mirror of the whole competition. For the time that I've been watching it closely, the improvement has been extraordinary. At one stage, when you were talking about those dark years, you weren't going so well, not all that long ago, and there was Bellpost Hill and Bannockburn and Inverleigh, a clear gap between the rest of the competition. But in a short space of time, it's closed up an awful lot. You were a part of a group last year and that improved quite a lot. We know coming out of the chat that will happen again, and now the potential finalists, instead of being 5 or 6 teams, is probably 10 or 11, and that must be a great thing that you've observed looking across the whole comp.
Yeah, and I agree, mate. And I think even if you were to look right down the bottom to a team like Corio, I'm expecting them to be way more competitive than previously, because I know Darren's doing a great job there and they've recruited as well. And I just think, look, it's funny because as a coach, you wouldn't mind a few easy games and you wouldn't mind looking at your calendar and okay, win. But I'd prepare for the fact that, for example, every time we travel to Anarchy, we know we're in for a battle, even if they're having a bad season, and they knocked off teams last year as well. And I think it makes for a way more challenging and competitive season, but it also puts pressure on you as a team to be up all the time. And I think I shared with you guys that was our Achilles heel early on, because we had a young playing list that they could beat Thompson one week and then lose to Anarchy the next. And that's what we're trying to address by our recruiting strategy of topping our team up and recruiting for now. I think we've probably got about 6 or 7 30 pluses now, where literally our oldest player would have been our captain at 26, 2 or 3 years ago. So, and we've done that deliberately because you just need some cool heads. You need people who've been in the fight. You need people who've been successful at higher levels. And we're comfortable that, hopefully adding that to the mix of what is still a young and up-and-coming team, that'll be a good balance to get us some good results.
I had the pleasure of finding out what you do when you're not at the Werribee Central's Footy Club 2019, and it fascinated me. Still connected, working with the Richmond Football Club, the reigning premiers of the AFL, but in a behind-the-scenes capacity. Just revisit your role there, and in these COVID times, how has that changed your role at the club?
Yeah, sure. Look, I'm very fortunate that I still have a job at Richmond, because a lot of people in the AFL industry certainly lost their jobs last year. But I work for what's called the Richmond Institute of Sport Leadership. I'm the campus manager, so it's kind of like the principal, if you like, of it. But we have about 150 students doing a post-secondary, so after year 12, doing a sports leadership diploma, and then a sport development diploma, and then a leadership and management diploma, so a double diploma. And and it's attached to the Richmond Footy Club, so we're based there, and it's part of their Richmond's partnership with Swinburne, one of their major sponsors. And so they're Swinburne students, but they do their course at Richmond, and they do all their volunteer hours, which are associated to the course. They do that at Richmond, helping out on game day and that sort of stuff. So as you can imagine, last year was really challenging because there was none of that. There was no game day roles. Students had to do all of their work online, which is really challenging. But we actually became quite important to the club because they started the both for 2 reasons. One was to develop another non-footy income stream. So you can imagine we were pretty important to the club last year when they had such financial challenges around attendance in particular, although membership was still high. They had no attendance at games. And then the second part of it is that the students themselves had their different experience meant that, I guess we had to fight for growth within the product we were providing to kind of supplement, if you like, some of that lack of income that was coming from footy. So yeah, it was very, very interesting year, and one where we ended up feeling quite important in at least in some of the financial sustenance, if you like, of a club during a premiership year. It was a good feeling to eventually celebrate as a whole club when the club returned from the hub.
Nick, as a coach of a footy club, I imagine someone in a less intensive job would probably have their mind wandering to club football stuff, whether he's going to play Billy on the half-back flank or on the wing, and you can get distracted. But I guess a role like you've got there, you really don't have too much time where you sit down and think about Werribee Central's issues while you're in that role?
I'd like to say, I'm not sure who's listening, so I'd like to say,
typically nobody, so you're okay.
Yeah, hey, I'm always focused, mate. I'm always focused on my job at Richmond. I never do any Central's work at work. But I think everyone knows that, to be honest, you talk to any coach, there's no way you can switch your brain off from local footy. I do love the fact that, you know, my environment is a footy environment, and to be honest, like, I get to hear from, you know, Brendan Gale, Peggy O'Neill, you know, Damien Hardwick, Tim Livingston, all key people at Richmond that just absolutely fuel, you know, me with information around leadership. And my boys wouldn't even know that half the things I introduce are just coming straight from something someone at Richmond said the week before. I just claim them all as my own original ideas.
As you should. That's how we do this radio program.
Exactly. There's no such thing as original work.
No, absolutely not.
Anyway, from my perspective, I think every local coach will tell you it takes a weird, sort of strange person to be a coach anyway, because you've got to be prepared for the fact that all of a sudden you wake up at 1 a.m., you know, trying to decide who you're going to play on the weekend. You know, it is a weird feeling. But I think it's also what makes us tick a little bit, you know, because for me, I'm the sort of person that I've loved footy for a long time. I found that this is a way to, once you're past playing, or in my case, well and truly past playing, it's a great way to still be able to give back. But the fact is that for the players, I think they deserve that from you as well, because I really take pride in the fact of, you know, trying to be organised and that my guys turn up and get a good training session, that selection and communication around that is clear, and then that game day is enjoyable. You know, like, I played footy because I loved it, you know, and so I still want to keep that somehow in the mix, which I think is getting harder to do because it can feel like that footy is work and hard work.
That's a perfect segue into my final question, Nick. You're talking about your playing days, because I'd just like you to go through the goal of the day in the 2000 Grand Final, where Werribee, I think, beat Bannockburn. Do you recall that?
2000.
Yeah.
And the reason I know is I've been watching them back because of all of they've appeared on the GDFL website.
Of course they have.
They have indeed.
Sorry, I've changed my screensaver a few times since they've come out. I think you might be talking about 2000 prelim. I think the 2000 prelim I kicked 4, and I did kick. There was a reasonable goal in there somewhere, I think. I actually didn't play that well in the grand finals during that. Oh, well, I didn't feel I did, but yeah, I did. I had reasonable finals campaigns in 99 and 2000. Yeah.
It's good that you've got them in the memory, and hopefully your current playing group have enough people around the footy club that remind them of your past deeds, because it's nice to have that little bit of respect, I imagine, from the group that you are a warrior of the club, and I suppose when you're telling them what to do and the importance of club matters, that they actually snap it to attention.
Well, I think there's an element by which that certainly helps. You've got some weight as a player, and I do say to them, just remember, I'm not just talking out of information that I was taught. You know, this is information I actually know and I did, you know, and especially I feel like there's a lot you've got to offer to a playing group when you, especially you think we're actually, you know, last year would have been our 20-year anniversary of 2000, and this year will be our 20-year anniversary of 2001. So you're literally 20 years from the most successful era that the club had. I'm fortunate that I actually coach a couple, like I coach Bucky's son, so that's a great reminder of, and remember my son was playing as well, so it's a real reminder that you are literally now one generation on from that, and we really haven't had much success in between. And I know for someone like Bucky, we often talk all the time about we just want to get back to that, where the GFL hated us because we kept down the highway, and that's what we're aiming to do this year.
Yeah, good on you, mate. Thanks very much for your time. You've been very generous, and we'll no doubt chat to you through the season if we get it up and away, and fingers crossed that that'll be the case. But you are certainly at the helm of one of the very warm favourites for the competition, and it's a situation I reckon sits quite comfortably with you.
Werribee too, the number one Centrals fan who just yells over the fence at me every Tuesday and Thursday night. It's always good to have him around.
Good on you, mate. All the very best, and we'll chat to you again later on.
Yeah, thanks, lads. Have a good one.
Nick Smith, coach of the Werribee Centrals, and they definitely are looking the goods, Neil.
Yes, well, I would need to take your word for that because you are a little closer to the action than I am. But
no, they'll be very, very hard to beat. I know we've spoken to two coaches already who are up and about and know they'll be better. Inverleigh in particular looks the side that will challenge hardest, I think, but this mob are favourites.